Welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to be making mochi, which turns out is kind of hard. I came across this video on TikTok from Feeding My Mai for a little 2-ingredient mochi hack where you literally just use ice cream and the sweet rice flour. To avoid using dairy, I've got the Oatly brand of ice cream, strawberry and chocolate flavor, and for the sweet rice flour, I'm going to use the Mochico brand. And just to note, because I didn't know this beforehand, sweet rice flour is not sweetened rice flour. In other words, you cannot take regular rice flour and add sugar or sweetener to get sweet rice flour. They are made of 2 different kinds of rice. I'm adding 1/3 cup of the ice cream and completely melting it. Then I'm going to mix 1/3 cup of the sweet rice flour in. Mine was definitely too thick, so I tried adding a little bit more of the ice cream. It was definitely still too thick, but for some reason I just kept going with it. Now, I don't have a microwave, so this is where I had to deviate from the hack video just a little bit. I found this video from Lotus Fusion where she shows how to make mochi in a pan on the stovetop. I'll have that video linked below. I put the dough over medium-low heat, stirring continuously until a ball formed and began to lift from the pan. Cornstarch could have been listed as an ingredient, but it's more of a tool here than an ingredient. It's used to keep the dough from sticking to everything. This is where I knew my dough was going to be wrong for sure because it was hardly sticky at all, but I put it in the freezer for like 30 minutes to see what they would be like. My dough was ending up really thick, grainy, and tasted like raw flour. I didn't know what was the issue at this point. I was thinking maybe it was the vegan ice cream that I was using, or maybe that hack video just didn't work. I pulled the video from Lotus Fusion back up and tried to just follow her recipe from start to finish. I'm mixing 115 grams of sweet rice flour, 60 grams of sugar, and 2/3 cup of water. My dough was still too dry, so I kept adding water until mine looked like the dough in the video. Did the same heating process on medium-low, stirring constantly until the ball forms and lifts from the pan. It was very sticky this time. I was struggling a lot to roll it out, so I allowed myself to get my hopes up just a little bit because with the better consistency plus how sticky it was, it seemed like it was going to be correct. From this dough, I was able to cut 8 squares, so I made some strawberry and some chocolate from this one batch of dough. Now, the way I am encasing these is so incredibly wrong, and it ended up in a very incorrect dough to ice cream ratio. There's way too much dough. I think one thing I can do to help fix that is to freeze the balls of ice cream first so that they're a little bit more solid and easier to work with and wrap up. But also my dough was just not as pliable or stretchy as I needed it to be to really like get it wrapped around there. And also, I don't know, in hindsight, I just should have been removing the excess at the end and I just wasn't. I don't know why I wasn't doing that. This round did turn out a lot better. It was smoother, thinner, and tasted less like raw flour, but it still wasn't right. After some Googling, I've come to the conclusion that it's probably this scale that I'm using that's the issue. This scale is somewhat inaccurate, and apparently with those you have to be like super duper accurate. So that might be the reason that I'm having to add so much more water than like most of these recipes calls for. And I'll go ahead and say that it's probably not the hack video. The hack video was probably just fine. I quite assume that if you followed her hack video, it would work. I think the problem with just me, I have always struggled with making dough. I decided to give the recipe from the Lotus Fusion video another try, but this time I just kept adding water until it looked like hers did, and that allowed me to cook it a lot slower and lower and for longer. The dough is much stickier and actually pretty stretchy this time. I was still struggling quite a lot to wrap the ice cream balls, but I found that freezing the ice cream into small individual balls beforehand made it a lot easier. I never really got the hang of it per se, but I did get better at wrapping them than when I started. I made 11 mochis out of this dough because I was able to actually roll it and stretch it a lot more. These ended up turning out much better. I know they still look a little rough, but the texture and chewiness and stretchiness of the dough was actually right this time. I also want to try some other fillings just for fun, but also because I'm getting a little bit tired of ice cream, but I want to keep trying to make the dough. So I'm going to make 4 different kinds. I'm going to make some with peanut butter and banana inside. I'm going to make some with frozen mango. And then I'm going to make some with like a pizza, basically a cheese and sauce inside. And we're going to make one that's cheese and seaweed. I just Googled, went on Reddit, and was reading through things that people suggested they put in theirs or have seen put in mochis before. Now, I'm not that familiar with Japanese terms, but I'm pretty sure that once you start heating the mochi, it's no longer called mochi. There's a different term for it, so I'll just use the term dough. I made another batch of dough. I think I actually added a little bit too much water to this one, but I'll get the hang of it the more I do it. Then I filled some with just cheese and some with the cheese and seaweed mixture. And I picked up this little mixture of fruit. I thought I was going to use the mango, but I thought, actually, I want to try the peaches. I cooked the cheese ones a couple minutes on each side, and I left the sauce on the side thinking that it would make it less messy, but the cheese was exploding everywhere anyways. The cheese pizza ones, delicious. The ones with seaweed were not necessarily for me. I didn't like those. I did very much like the ones with peaches, though. Anyways, I'll just have to keep working on it, but I think that's where we'll close this video. Thanks for joining me. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the little thumbs up down below. Subscribe while you're hanging out down there. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.